Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, so we have some quick news to get to that I think is bigger than what they're currently saying. Um, Based on some research and some rating, just broke about an hour ago, so it's still within that breaking category. Um, I don't know if anybody's heard of it yet, but Pentagon officials originally today at about 2 o'clock, so about 2.5 hours ago, said there was a purported national security threat that's related to the Russian military capabilities in space. So we fast forward, there was a some information released um, by the United States Space Force. There was information released from a GOP congressman, and there was other information released. Um, hey, what's up, Greedy? Haven't seen you in a while, bud. Um, U.S. intelligence officials reportedly told CNN, so take that for what it's worth. National security threat is highly concerning and destabilizing. Um, U.S. Representatives Intelligence Chairman Mike Turner from Ohio. Well, actually, I can bring this up. Let me bring this up. I do have it up. Said all members of Congress have access to the info on a quote serious national security threat end quote. He requested Biden, quote, declassify all information relating to this threat so that Congress, the administration, and our allies can openly discuss actions taken and the actions necessary to respond to this threat. So that's a statement from Chairman Turner from the National Security. So this is all earlier today. Democratic source familiar with the threat told NBC that this is a serious issue that could lead to destabilizing situation and national security threat, as they described a potential foreign threat, but would not say where it was coming from. So I waited, I waited, started digging into it, and just about the time it broke, we got this article. US fears Russia preparing to put nuclear weapons in space. I think it's even bigger than that. I think the United States fears that Russia has already put nuclear weapons in space. Um, so if we look back, there was a Roscosmos mission, which is the Russian space agency, aboard a Soyuz 21A that left from an unusual destination. It did not leave from Baikonur Cosmodrome. It left from the Russian mainland from a unutilized spaceport, um, and it was a classified payload. So it was a classified payload that we did not know. Um, there was no coverage of it because it was classified out of Russia. So good luck trying to get shit. Uh, and it went to space successfully. Um, and I recall seeing it very clearly and saying, "Huh, I wonder." Um, but that was on February 9th, uh, U.S. Um, I'm trying to look up if they ever updated. So it's at 2:03 a.m. Eastern time, from the Pletsk Cosmodrome in Homeland, Russia. Um, and I take that back. It was not a 2.1A. It was a 2.1V, which is a specifically different rocket. Um, so when you look at the status report, it says payload identity and Cosmos series numbering uncertain. So there's uncertainty around that. Um, and this mission was 2575 Soyuz 2.1V, which is a variant that we don't normally see. We usually see the A or the B variant when we're watching launches. Um, so the fact that it had a classified payload, which is uncommon for Russia, the fact that it did not go out of Baikonur, which is uncommon for Russia, and the fact that we did not get live video. We allegedly got this video, and I will play it now. So this is the 2575 Soyuz 2.1V. So this is all the footage we got from this launch. Um, and there are some differences, but yeah. So instead of getting the hoopla, the fanfare, all that good stuff, that's what we got. A 31-second video of the Soyuz. Um, I think this is much bigger than they're saying. We're going to read the article. We'll get into some other stuff. Um, I want to talk about some of the capabilities that this does have. So one of the things that's incredibly concerning about Roscosmos sending a nuclear weapon to space is one, if it didn't get to space successfully, or they are anticipating sending it to space in the near future, jump forward. There is a Soyuz launch this evening. This evening, our time. Let me check the time exactly because it's either this late this evening or early in the morning. Um, so it's at 10:25 p.m. Eastern time. That's MS-26. There is a payload on that one that we know of, and that's on 31-6 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, which is normally where we see um, normally where we see uh, West Cosmos. Oh no, this one is unknown as well. If I can talk today, so they're saying this is another military satellite going tonight. So just for you, Neo, just for you. So there's another one going off at 10:25 p.m. Eastern tonight. And like I said, this one is going not from mainland Russia, but from the normal spot, which is the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. That will be covered over on Rocket Garden Media, the friend channel, the friend of the channel. Just trying to read through. So the official declaration says that this is Progress MS-26 and it's a resupply mission, but there are also military satellites. So there's a multiple payload vehicle on this one. So there's a little bit of different information back and forth. Which, if you're the Russian government, of course you're going to of course that's in your purview is to confuse people and try and throw people off. But this one was incredibly odd. This Soyuz 2.1V out of Russia, mainland Russia, was incredibly odd. So what are the capabilities? What are we talking about here? So we're talking about the fact that this could potentially take out nearly every single satellite we have in the sky currently, due to radiation, due to expansion, due to lack of atmosphere to hold in the warhead, like you would get here on Earth with the atmospheric pressure and so on and so forth. The other thing that this could, whatever it didn't destroy, which when you destroy satellites, then you have the ongoing problem of all the pieces are now high-speed projectiles that are going 30,000 miles per hour that can then damage more satellites and in turn destroy more satellites. But if you take all that away, there's also the heavy dose of radiation that you would get that would destroy satellites. There's also some indication that it could be used back here for Earth. Obviously, they could drop them down, re-enter the atmosphere, much like their ICBMs, and they could hit Earth. And one of the last applications and last concerns with this technology is that They could use it as an electromagnetic pulse or EMP, and an EMP would be devastating to all of our electronics on Earth. We talked before about the natural kind from the sun, but this would be this would be utterly devastating to not only every American, but every allied country. Um, you could knock out huge swaths of power for a very long time. Um, so we'll read this article and see what they have to say about it. This came out about 15 minutes before I went live. So, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Rep. Mike Turner, sparked national concern on Wednesday with the release of an urgent notice warning of a serious national security threat. Members of Congress are now being briefed on the matter. Multiple sources tell me that CNN's original reporting on the threat being Russia related is accurate. The two sources further tell me that it's space-based nuclear weapons threat. Top line, it appears that Russia is in the process of deploying via multiple recent satellite launches or is preparing to deploy an satellite-based nuclear weapons system into space. Concerns have escalated amid Russian military-related satellite launches, the most of which occurred last week. My sources say that this is a Russian anti-satellite weapon capable of capability designed to destroy or degrade U.S. and allied satellite constellations. Radiation produced by a nuclear explosion would likely cause widespread disruption to these constellations, as Lieutenant Colonel Robert Vincent noted in 2022. Most satellites with a line of sight to the nuclear detonation will be destroyed from the resulting X-rays. So if you put it far enough out, that takes care of most of the globe. Military space facilities for a command and control, along with reconnaissance assets, may still function for a period following the detonation, but the economic impact of degraded information space products will be immediate. So he has said nothing. Are you shocked? So what that's saying is there are certain satellites that are hardened against attack or hardened against different specific outputs, or could survive in an interim basis for long enough to try and get something else up there. But yeah, it'd be rough. It'd be rough. And basically any of the traditional or the commercial satellites are unshielded and would go down almost immediately. So if I can get to space with all that going on, will I become a superhero? No, you will die almost immediately. Or get super unlucky and die over time due to radiation poisoning. So, Russian physicists have openly theorized plans to develop a space-based nuclear warhead system that would vaporize a second target-facing element to create a plasma wave that strikes targets in space at range. This would fit with Russia's publicly known focus in recent years to deploy satellites variously designed to destroy other satellites. The intent is to blind an adversary's command and control apparatus, communications, and weapons targeting capabilities in war. Vladimir Putin has placed significant emphasis on the development of new strategic weapons. The Russian FSB, Domestic Security Service, has also greatly increased its supervision of scientists working on these weapon systems. This focus speaks to Russians' long-standing interest in exploiting the potential utility of space-based nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union previously developed a so-called fractional orbital bombardment system designed to deliver nuclear warheads in a surprise attack on Washington, eliminating the U.S. presidential line of succession and associated nuclear command and control. There are, however, various technical complexities and military weaknesses to this FOB's approach. Regardless, the deployment of nuclear weapons in space would constitute an unequivocal violation of the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, to which both the United States and Russia are parties. At a minimum, this would increase already serious U.S.-Russia tensions. It would absolutely do that, and if it's fractional orbital bombardment systems, it's not that much of a tech, not that much of a tech, difference at this point because, um, that's essentially what we have with ICBMs. ICBMs leave our atmosphere, uh, and re-enter. So most of those problems they've already solved with shielding, both heat and detonation shielding. So it is something that, in my opinion, would not be that difficult to achieve a fractional orbital bombardment system. Um, and that would be space-based nukes hitting areas on the US and its allies. So, we'll continue to go through this article. Moving things around. Maybe if I can put it over here, I can actually see the damn thing. Um, Vladimir, blah, blah, blah. We already read that. All right. Again, the key here is the U.S. nuclear command and control chain. This chain relies heavily on satellites, and both Soviet and contemporary Russian war planning centers heavily on high-risk decapitation strikes against an adversary's leadership in advance of follow-on military operations. The U.S. will now have to decide alongside allies how to respond to Russia's actions. This option might include new sanctions, the deployment of similar weapons into space as means of countering Russia's threat, or even the destruction of Russia's weapons. Regardless, it's clearly a new major national security challenge for a Biden administration already facing many such challenges. I think that this is bigger than there's a lot of news agencies that are making this a big deal. No, the Russians, in my opinion, 5 days ago sent nuclear weapons to space. And again, I laid out my opinion, based on the fact that there was an unusual variant from an unusual launch site with an unusual payload and call number that launched from the Russian Federation, not from the traditional Baikonur Cosmodrome. There's another satellite or another launch of a vehicle that is happening this evening. Just want to verify that. Yep. This evening, February 14th at 10:25 p.m. Eastern. This one is going out of Baikonur. This one is going out of Kazakhstan. But like I said, the previous one was very odd. It was when they're using it for satellite deployment or peaceful purposes or resupply missions, that kind of thing, they use a Soyuz 2.1A variant. This one was a Soyuz 2.1V variant. Some of the other things, like I said, they always launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome. This one they launched from mainland Russia. The one on February 9th. Also, normally, like tonight, we'll get footage of the launch in its entirety. This one we did not get it. I guess we can replay it. It's a rocket launch, why not? But this is what we got from Roscosmos and the Russian. That's another thing. This one didn't directly come from Roscosmos. Obviously, it was utilizing Roscosmos networks. It was utilizing Roscosmos resources. But this actual video came from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and the actual rocket was from the Ministry of Defense, not Roscosmos. So the one we're talking about was VKS RF, Soyuz 2.1V Cosmos 2575. About 15, 18 minutes. I'm kind of recapping a little bit. So this went from the Plesk Cosmodrome in mainland Russia. Again, the peaceful missions or the space and science focused missions usually come out of Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. This one very unusually came out of Plesk Cosmodrome in Russia. Um, and like I said, this one came out at 2:03 a.m. Eastern on February 9th. And again, this is all the video that we got. So instead of the hour um, of video, we got a total of 31 seconds of this. Whatever happens, get in a wet dress today. So that is all the footage we got. The interesting thing too is the Soyuz 2.1A, just the normal run of the mill everyday Soyuz 2.1 A variant. We usually get a payload to LEO or low Earth orbit capability of about 7,500 kilos. On this 2.1V variant, there is a 3,000 kilo payload to LEO. I don't know. I don't know. um, and again, this is going to SSO, Sun Synchronous Orbit. This specific mission, and this launched on February 9th. So the United States is saying that it's upcoming. The United States is saying that they are meeting because there's a threat that is coming up, and I'm here to say that I completely disagree with them and their I 100% disagree with what they're saying. Damn, don't do that. People will get all confused. So like I said, already kind of recap, but there's several things. This could be that FOSB, the fractional or orbital bombardment system. It could be something to destroy satellites in space, which would create a chain reaction and could take out most to not all. I can't answer that with 100% certainty. Like I said, I think they're already up there. I think this is I think that anything more, this is more than a posturing move. But in my opinion, based on watching a hell of a lot of space flight, these nukes are already airborne. They're already in space. And that will be followed up. There is, like I said, there's a launch tonight at 10:25 from Baikonur on a back to the Soyuz 2.1A. But again, knowing what I know around space flight and rocketry and all that kind of stuff, it seems like it went up on the 9th, and it was a cause for concern. And I looked at it and I was trying to cover it, but there was, like I said, there was no video. So it would have been just, me talking about nothing. So, so that's never fun. So, I think they got some indication from the Russians that they were already up. So, sorry, I'm just reading something real quick. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what's going on or what the plan is. Let's see. Exactly. So yeah, so it's already up there, so it will remain in space, it will remain orbital. That's another concern, is that if it loses its, I mean, it's a risky proposition. That's why the United States has supposedly never done it. Because it is incredibly risky. If you miss your orbit, you're fucked. If you I mean, if there's too much orbital decay and you can't keep it up, long enough, then you're fucked. There's a lot of opportunity for a serious and grave mistake for that nuclear missile, nuclear, bomb, whatever you wanna call it, to do unintended harm, um, but I think Russia doesn't care at this point. We would feel an EMP immediately. So if the design and the indication so let's take it to the timeline. We'll go through the timeline just real quick. So, if it was something space-based, we would start to see minor interruptions with things like connectivity, things like GPS, that kind of information systems, um, and that would be pretty that would be pretty immediate, where we'd start seeing some kind of disruption in the system, and probably in the few hours range, we would get complete dropout of entire systems. Um, so we'd get entire dropouts of entire systems. If it was an MP, it would be immediate. Like as soon as there's the overrun of power, I mean, speed of light, blah blah blah. It would be incredibly quick. We would notice immediately that grids would be down, uh, vehicles wouldn't work, that kind of thing. Uh, and people would probably be standing there bitching that their phone didn't work, if we're being honest. So, electronic devices, that kind of thing. If it was something where they were nuking us, obviously that would take longer. It would have less of a global impact. It would probably be so if it was that fractional orbital bombardment system, it would be something that we would likely hear about through the news, or if you're close enough to one of the impactors, you would obviously see a mushroom cloud. Um, and so so those are kind of the ranges of what could happen. Um, what's likely to happen, I don't know. I truly don't know. Um, there is concern that if you're putting it up, you're gonna use the damn thing because you can't bring it back. You can't bring it back. So, um, it would be incredibly dangerous to bring it back to the atmosphere, and you would almost certainly have an accidental detonation. Um, so it'd be incredibly difficult to bring back, and not even that feasible. Like I wouldn't trust bringing it back. So the indication is that it would probably go up, and it would probably stay there with some significant indication that it was indeed going to be used. So if it's up, they have intention to use it because you can't let it decay. You can't let it decay over time. I mean, it could sit up there for 40, 50 years, but then it would be unreliable. You would have to raise orbital inclination. Like it would be incredibly difficult to keep it up there that long, um, without some kind of intervention. Also, um, like I said, you're not bringing it back. And you can't just shoot it off into the sun, and one, it's incredibly difficult to get to the sun, um, which I don't think people understand. It's really difficult to get into the sun. Um, so it's not something you're gonna send off into the sun. It's not something that you can just send off into deep space and explode because there would be repercussions for that. So if it is indeed up, if it's indeed up, there is intention to use it, in my opinion. Suppose we never put one up there. I doubt very specific three-letter agency hasn't done it already. Potentially, but again, there's if you're putting it there, you're using the damn thing. Like there's you know, they do. I don't know how much that um I don't know how well they work, and I don't know that I'd heavily get behind one, but uh not if it doesn't have electric ignition. So the electric, some of the older vehicles, I think it's pre-1980. I think it's if you're in the 70s, you're fine. Don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure. But it's when we went to electric, um, the computers, the electric starters, that kind of stuff, um, where they have some kind of overload capacity. So because all an AMP is overloading with energy and you're burning the circuit. So uh yeah. The difference is the Starlinks aren't nuclear fissile material and wouldn't kill a bunch of people. They would burn up in the atmosphere because they're small enough. Um, and they're designed to deorbit, um, so decay, deorbit, and then burn up in our atmosphere. Um, so potentially it's there are other ways to get around it. When you're talking about the computer control systems, it's going to fry phones, electronics, TVs, PCs, and newer vehicles have so much electronic components, so much computer electronics in them at this point that it would be incredibly difficult. So, um, but so that's what we got going on. I think this is excuse me. I think this is a far bigger story. I don't buy the um, I don't buy the fact that this is some kind of psyop or um, some kind of distraction. Just because I watched it, I raised concerns immediately with the rocket itself, the difference in call sign, the difference in payload, the difference in configuration. It was highly, highly unusual. I just didn't know what the hell it was. Um, and now we're getting reports to back up my original suspicions, and now I'm like, yeah, that was a nuke. They set up a nuke. Um, so again, just to recap everything that I've seen, I think this is a credible threat. Everything that I've seen, the nuke's already in space. So, they're very similar. They're very, very similar because of proximity and that kind of thing. Of course, you're not going to get the raw energy, but the directed energy is the issue. So the energy that you could specifically direct at a target or a square area, would be one of those things that would be concerning. So, whereas the sun is much more spread out, it's not intentionally trying to hit us. It's more of a fan approach. No worries, buddy. How you doing? So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I think that this is a legitimate concern. It'll be interesting to see what happens this evening, um, with the other launch. Again, that's 10:25 uh, p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be on. Yeah. Okay. So 10:25 p.m. Eastern time, and that will be a traditional Soyuz. So, but it still has a classified payload. So it could it have one in addition? Because again, the payload capacity is almost twice what it is, and maybe I'll cover that one too here, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this. I hope they start declassifying some information, but that would be my personal thought process and indication based on the data. Um, Bill would have loved this. Yeah, he would have. That would have been my indication based on the data that that the nuke's already in play. It's already up there. So those are my thoughts. Hope you guys stay safe. I got to get out of here because there is a USSF 124. The United States is launching a classified U.S. Space Force payload in about 10 minutes. So, just so Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Carrington level events, those kind of things. So that's going to be it for me. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. If anything new breaks with this, I'll come back. If not, I'll probably, like I said, I'll cover the Roscosmos launch tonight here, just so we can see if any funny business happens or anything changes. Until then, have a good day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.